Hey guys, welcome to the Dysautonomia Movement channel. If you are new to the channel, I'm so glad that you're joining. If you are a frequent exerciser with me, then that's really awesome to hear. So today I have a few slides that I've put together. One thing that we did a lot in varsity when we were studying and learning about the human body and how these different diseases and conditions work is that we used to kind of learn about the pathophysiology, what the effects are on the body, and also how that affects exercise and also the benefits that exercise can give. So we did this for your cardiovascular disease, your neurological diseases, your multiple sclerosis. We did it for diabetes, all of your special populations, but obviously we never touched on dysautonomia because, as you guys know, as much as it's a global condition and a lot of people have this condition, it's not very well researched and it's not very big in terms of exercise. So I thought it would be nice to just have a presentation that we can go through and I can explain to you guys how everything works. At the global epidemiology, so this basically refers to how prominent the condition is around the world, as well as how many people are affected by it and what kind of the outcomes are for these conditions. So in the world there are quite a few people, a few million people that actually suffer from dysautonomia, and it can affect any age, race or gender, so it's not specific to any kind of population. There is some research out there that say that women are a lot more affected than men, or they're more susceptible to it, but this is not necessarily always the case because anyone can be affected. And it's not necessarily that you've done anything in your life to deserve this or that you were wrong in any way, but it's just that you have this condition and now what are you going to do about it? So I'm sure a lot of you guys know by now what dysautonomia is, but let's just go through that again. Dysautonomia by definition refers to a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system is the system that controls all of your automatic and unconscious involuntary bodily functions. These are the functions that are needed to maintain homeostasis. So homeostasis refers to a balance. It means that, let's say your body's sitting at a certain level and this is your homeostatic level within your body. This refers to your heart rate, your temperature, your sweating, your food or cellular breakdown of food for nutrients. All of these have a homeostatic level. It also refers to your adrenaline levels, your sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. Generally, in a normal individual, these are sitting at a homeostatic or baseline level. When we have external factors or anything that can change this, often this level can change and the homeostatic level will be disrupted. And let's say if you're looking at a graph, there's an increase in the graph due to an external stimulus. So let's say with the temperature, you have a lot of heat around you, you're sitting in a warm room. Obviously now your temperature, your internal core temperature will start to rise. And in a normal individual, in normal circumstances, your body would counteract this through a negative feedback mechanism and cause the body to start cooling down. This would happen by your body starting to sweat and actually cause this sweat to evaporate, which in turn cools down your body. So this is an example of a homeostatic system, but obviously there are many of them. So basically with dysautonomia, there's a disruption to that homeostatic normal level, and you can either be above, you can be below, and some people can change throughout the day. These systems, it's also important to know that they are essential to human survival. And like I say, with the temperature changes, with your heart rate changes, when you're in a panic situation, adrenaline is released, which causes your heart rate to increase, your senses to increase, your alertness to increase, which is important because if you're in an emergency situation, these are the things that you need to get out of that situation or possibly to save your life. But for a lot of people who have dysautonomia, this kind of response happens involuntarily and they can have this jump in their sympathetic nervous system and not be able to bring it back down, and that's often why we have to take medications for those kind of symptoms. So the essential functions that we look at when you're looking at dysautonomia, there are a few more, but these are the basic ones. You look at your blood perfusion, so moving the blood throughout your body. This is obviously based on your heart rate and your blood pressure. The blood pressure is the pressure of your blood moving out of your heart against the arterial walls, and then obviously your heart rate is what regulates the blood pumping out of your heart. Then your thermoregulation. So thermoregulation means maintaining your temperature, whether it needs to go up or down depending on your surroundings and the situation that you find yourself in. And this obviously happens through sweating if you're too hot and shivering if your body temperature is too cold. Another important thing is vasodilation and vasoconstriction. So these two refers to vasodilation is where your blood vessels become bigger, and vasoconstriction is where they become smaller. Your blood vessels will become bigger or vasodilate if you need to get more blood to your extremities. So that's where, let's say, you're feeling hot and your body now needs to get rid of some heat. So your blood vessels around your hands, arms, feet, face will vasodilate, and the blood will go to those areas in order to balance out the body heat throughout your body, cause sweating, and also cool down the body. Then vasoconstriction, on the other hand, is if your body is really cold. The body's natural defense mechanism is to maintain the core temperature. So that the body wants to maintain the core temperature to protect the vital organs such as your heart and brain. So obviously this is a protective mechanism, so the body is accustomed to it and made for it. So then your blood vessels will vasoconstrict or become smaller, and this would cause most of the blood to shunt to the middle of your body, your core, and keep it warm. Then the next one is the breakdown and processing of nutrients. So obviously when you eat something, the different glands secrete liquids that help to break down the food, and then the sections of the gut. Obviously if your gut's working normally, you can absorb the specific nutrients that you need to from the food, and if it's not working normally, then obviously you will not be absorbing those nutrients. Then cognitive processing, concentration, and output. So this refers to your brain's processing mechanism and ability to understand, process, and make sense of information. So with this aspect, if the brain is not functioning normally and it is a part of the autonomic nervous system and it's not receiving impulses or giving out impulses at the correct rate or the correct sequence, then you can have a lot of dysfunction that happens with the rest of the body. And often people with dysautonomia will talk about something called brain fog, and this refers to that feeling where you know what's going on and you're kind of conscious of what's happening, but your brain is not fully comprehending or understanding the situation, and you might almost find yourself saying, whoa, what just happened? And that's called brain fog, where you actually just aren't able to fully understand and be present in the situation or make sense of the situation. So your brain's actually not realizing and cognitively understanding what's happening. Then the last note on this slide is also important to note that dysautonomia, as much as I'm speaking specifically about that today, it can happen in conjunction with a lot of other conditions, and therefore it was important to know that the signs and symptoms and the exact mechanisms that are affected can differ depending on what other conditions you might have. Okay, now for the next question, the big why. So everyone, whoever gets sick, wants to know why. Why is this happening to them? What did they do to deserve this? Or what did they eat? What did they do wrong? What illness did they get to cause this kind of condition? And the answer to that is not very straightforward, unfortunately. Depending on the type of dysautonomia and depending on the type of doctor you have, they might be able to say, well, this is the root cause, let's sort it out and you're fine. But most of the time, there are a lot of different causes that are plausible, and it's kind of a process of elimination to see what is your cause and what they can do about it. So possible causes include degenerative neurological diseases, for example, your multiple sclerosis, your Parkinson's, where the brain neurons are actually being damaged or the myelin sheath is actually damaged, which causes impulses to not be sent correctly, and also a disruption in the conduction of those impulses. And then also immune-mediated attack. So your immune-mediated attack is often where the immune system attacks itself. This can happen after you have something like the common cold or the flu, and this can be idiopathic or paraneoplastic. Idiopathic refers to an abrupt response. So for example, you've had the flu, your body created antibodies, which instead of creating antibodies to combat the flu, it created antibodies which actually recognized the myelin sheath as a foreign invader. This can often happen when the flu that you had a similar protein enzyme to the myelin, and then obviously your body has now produced antibodies against those foreign invaders and now starts to attack the myelin sheath. So this causes a lot of nerve damage, but can also affect the autonomic nervous system. Then paraneoplastic refers to something that is caused by cancer. Then metabolic and toxic damage. This is often from such conditions such as your diabetes or obesity, or just where your body is not functioning optimally and you aren't getting rid of the toxic wastes that your body is producing, and you now have this buildup of toxins in your body and it starts to damage itself and degenerate the body's natural protective mechanisms and its natural functional physiology. So moving on to the common symptoms, which I'm sure most of you are very familiar with, and these are just the common ones that are mentioned here. but obviously you might have ones that are specific to you, and the ones here you might not have either. So it just depends on how it affects your body. Then obviously the inability to remain upright, that also refers to your POTS, your postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where individuals have an increase in heart rate as soon as they sit up or stand up, which affects them quite a lot. Your dizziness, your irregular heartbeat, so this can be an arrhythmia, a very fast tachycardia, or a bradycardia, a slow heart rate. Then you have your erratic blood pressure, which can be very low, it can be very high, or it can go up and down depending on the day, the kind of circumstance that you find yourself in. Then your weakness, so feeling very weak on a day where you feel like you can't get out of bed, or just not able to lift things that you are able to, and you might just have this for a day. It might be a chronic thing, it just depends on your body. Anxiety, a lot of people struggle with because they find that they become very anxious, and this is also because of the sympathetic nervous system activation. And obviously with the sympathetic nervous system, you are releasing your adrenaline, you have all of that sympathetic activity which is at an increased level, which causes you to feel anxious. And this can happen to a lot of people while they're sitting on their couch. They're not necessarily doing anything that would cause this kind of response, but it's because the autonomic nervous system is not functioning correctly. Okay, then with the concentration and memory issues, just on a side note which is very interesting, I was undiagnosed for quite a while before I finally received my diagnosis and managed to get a good treatment and a good doctor who managed to help me. But one of my symptoms, which was one of the more prevalent ones, so I had the POTS symptoms, but one of the more prevalent ones was the concentration and memory issues. And I was actually finishing my honours degree during this time, and I just wasn't able to study for tests. And I was someone who always managed to study for tests because of the field that I was studying. I loved it. I loved the physiology. I loved the human body, the exercise aspect, and to not be able to study was one of the biggest things for me. And I just thought maybe I was burnt out, and it's easy to think I'm just tired, I just need rest, but in actual fact, if there's an underlying cause not allowing you to retain that memory and actually be able to function and write tests and learn and retain information properly, it obviously has a big effect on your body. So moving on to the effects on exercise. So this is a very interesting one because a lot of people now know that they need to exercise and know that it's important for your health and want it to help with their symptoms, but there's a few barriers that are holding them back. So due to the symptoms of dysautonomia, the effects on the exercise varies. So depending on your symptoms and your type of dysautonomia or condition, its effect on the exercise will differ. So this is often why it's nice to have an individual exercise physiologist or a clinician or a therapist or someone who can tailor a program specifically to you. But there's nothing wrong with doing basic exercise that you feel that you are capable of and progressing from there. So the individual who has this condition may experience an intolerance to exercise and also form a mental block to an exercise due to the discomfort that can occur due to the various symptoms that you can experience. The responses that you can have include an abnormal heart rate and blood pressure responses. This means when we're looking at you doing your test on a bicycle, doing an exercise, your heart rate, whereas it's supposed to steadily go up during an exercise, it might shoot up or have an abnormal increase, decrease kind of response. With the blood pressure, it's also supposed to steadily increase, and then when you stop exercising, it obviously starts to come down again. But with the blood pressure, you might even have a drop in blood pressure instead of it slowly increasing during exercise, and this is what we refer to as your abnormal responses. The weakness and lack of endurance, you might feel weak doing an exercise or be able to do an exercise but not maintain it for as long. An inability to change from a lying to a seated to standing position. So this is obviously self-explanatory because of those symptoms that arise when you are changing your body position. For example, the tilt table test, which a lot of people have gone through in the diagnostic process of determining that they have dysautonomia, and this will just show you, in your daily life you might not be able to easily stand up or sit up. You might have to do it in phases, which is perfectly normal, and obviously during exercise that will also be exacerbated. So then moving on, so then if all of these things happen and this affects your exercise response, why should you still exercise? So exercise is not a cure for any of these conditions, but it is still very, very important in maintaining your health, wellness, as well as managing the condition. So if we look at a few of the benefits to exercise, it improves your immune system for people who do have low immune systems and are possibly on immunoglobulin plasma exchange. Then your muscular strength will improve. This is really important for you to be able to do daily functioning. With improved muscular strength, you will also have less muscle atrophy or loss of muscle mass as you get older, and you will then delay the process of becoming frail or aging. We're improving the muscular endurance, which is obviously what we want to have to be able to do daily functions or daily activities for longer, and to be able to, for example, just be independent. So doing your washing alone, washing your dishes, whatever you need to do, being able to do that functionally. Then improved aerobic capacity. So obviously your aerobic capacity refers to the heart and the lungs and their ability to work together to maintain an output. So the output being the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and providing your body with enough oxygen to the muscles, to any kind of systems that require the oxygen, as well as removing any waste and carbon dioxide. So with exercise, when we work the aerobic systems, such as your cardio or cardiovascular exercise, we're improving those functions and stressing those functions. So we stress them in a hormetic manner, if I can say. So the process is called hormesis, and this refers to where you stress a system, the system is not used to that stress or stimulus, then it causes an increase in the body's response to that system, and then a decrease again after the stress or the stimulus is removed. And basically this just means that if you do this over time, eventually your body adapts and it gets stronger. So the next time you have that kind of stimulus, your body is used to it. So it just allows you to push yourself more and get stronger. And with individuals that have dysautonomia, it's really important to know that this takes a lot longer than in your general population. When you're doing it with someone who's quite athletic or an athlete, it's very easy to get these kind of results, and we can do the time frame a lot shorter. But with dysautonomia, you have to be a lot more patient and do these exercises and be patient with yourself. Do them continuously until you start noticing those results. And this might take a week for some people, it might take 4 weeks for other people. The most important thing is that you still keep trying. The next thing is your improved flexibility. Obviously flexibility is very important. It refers to the length of the muscle as well as the tendons and ligaments that hold the joint in place, but it also can be affected by, obviously every person is different, so one person might not be as flexible as the next person, but they might also not be able to improve it. So the main aim is to improve your flexibility to a point where you are comfortable, you can do daily functionality. You don't want to be too flexible or not flexible enough. Then the next one on this slide is to maintain a healthy body mass. With a lot of individuals with dysautonomia, you may lose a lot of weight and struggle to gain weight because your body's not holding onto those nutrients correctly, or your metabolism is very fast. And for some people, it might be that you have a little bit of extra body weight because you're on steroids or you're on cortisone or something that doesn't allow you to effectively or easily lose weight. Then increasing the neural stimulation. Just exercise in general causes the nerves to be stimulated, because if, for example, you're trying to move your foot or your hand, the message has to go from your brain down your spinal cord to the hand or to the foot in order to move that body part, and that goes through the muscle obviously. So it's neural stimulation of the muscle which causes movement of the body part. Okay, then the next one is your improved cardiac output. So basically this means that we are training the heart to become an effective system to not only pump blood through the body, but to also know when is enough, when is too little, and what the correct balance is. So we want you to have an efficient blood pressure for whatever movement you are doing. If you are lying down, your blood pressure doesn't need to be high. But if you're trying to do a specific exercise, your blood pressure will increase to ensure that there's enough blood perfusion to all of the muscles that are working. Then your heart rate control. With the heart rate control and variability, exercise will help to improve your heart rate variability. What this means is that when you exercise, your heart rate's going to go up. But as soon as you stop exercising, your heart rate should come down quite steadily and quite quickly, depending on how fit you are. So the fitter you are, the quicker your heart rate recovers. So the heart rate variability will also refer to it increasing, decreasing, and being effective in doing that, but also not increasing too much, such as in a POTS kind of situation. So as the heart adapts and changes and learns how to function in that kind of situation, it will know that it shouldn't just spike here, and you'll have fewer spikes. And also response to changes refers to if you're sitting up or if you're standing, your heart should effectively be able to increase its heart rate to pump enough blood now that you're standing, but not to cause a tachycardia response. you improve tolerance to symptoms. So the way that we work with this kind of situation with all of our patients, so not necessarily just dysautonomia, but is we want them to basically have a higher threshold at which these symptoms occur. So that means that you will exercise, and let's say now you've been exercising for 3 minutes and now you start to have these dysautonomic symptoms. Eventually, when your body responds over time, it should move up to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes, to 20 minutes, and eventually you should be able to do a workout without experiencing those symptoms. So the most important thing for exercise physiologists and biokineticists is that we want an individual to be functional and have an efficient and effective quality of life. We want you to be able to do your daily tasks without being out of breath, without struggling, without not being able to manage to do everything that you need to in a day, but also be healthy and add a little bit more exercise and do that. But the most important thing is to have a good quality of life. Then the final few things that we're moving on to, the first one is your exercise testing and your programs. So exercise testing would more be done by an exercise professional who would, let's say, be testing you or assessing you before you do a program with them. And different tests will be done based on your history, your symptoms, and then obviously depending on the clinician or the therapist that you're working with. So generally you'll do your cardiovascular testing. This can be done lying down, seated, or standing, so it depends on your ability. And this could be like your bruise protocol, your bulk protocol, your flexibility. You could measure your hamstrings, your shoulder, your back. You could do a whole different range of flexibilities depending on what you want to assess. You can do your strength, so your 10 rep max strength, and obviously for individuals who are weaker, you can do it with a TheraBand. It doesn't have to be a weight. And then obviously your muscular endurance you can also assess. And what's nice is that all of these baseline measures will assist you to become functional and also just help the clinician to see where you are, and then later on reassess that and just see exactly how much you have improved. With the cardiovascular health, we generally assess in terms of a VO2 max. With your flexibility, we assess with degrees or centimeters of movement. Then your strength, we assess with a weight, obviously, or how many reps you can do. And then endurance is how many reps in a specific time. For example, a 1-minute sit-up test or something like that. But this can be adjusted for you. Then with program prescription, this should and would preferably be very specialized to the person that you are dealing with. But obviously, for example, with the Dysautonomia Movement channel, I'm creating exercise that should be quite universal. And like I've said, you can do the exercise that you can do. And if there are any that you're not happy with, you just remove those and work up to them later on. So a lot of the protocols that are out there and the research that I've seen break up the exercise programs into phases. So you'll see if you look on my blog or on my Instagram, there are links to those protocols. For example, the CHOP protocol, which is the Children's Hospital protocol for POTS. They have quite a nice protocol and it breaks it up into phases. So you'll see here some of the phases are, for example, this is a very basic breakdown. You have your lying down exercises and your strengthening. You progress to seated exercises, progress to standing, and then you start your standing exercises. And by that stage, it could be 8 weeks into the program, it could be 3 months into the program, whatever the case is, depending on how your body tolerated the exercise and how your body adapted. I am busy making an ebook at the moment, which I will make available for you guys and let you know how I will be distributing that. But an ebook to explain what kind of exercise you can do from day one, lying exercise, all the way up until the end where you are healthier. But good luck guys, have a good day, and I hope that you found this interesting.